I can't take it. When in doubt, use Aquaphor. But I feel like y'all know that already. Guys know the drill. It's Living with Lee. If you're new here, hi, welcome. We love having you here. And if you are a returner, then of course you know we love to have you around as well. Now today, going to be doing something school related. Today's February 13th, the day that I'm recording this, and I know that the application process for grad school is either starting to wind down if it hasn't finished up already, and I know a lot of people are going to be waiting and anticipating to hear some results or just to hear something back from these schools. So I figured this would be the perfect time to basically share some tips, share some stats, and share my journey about how I got into Teachers College, Columbia University. Right, so I just had to pull out an eyelash. You guys see that? The eyelash was poking me. Okay. Let's give you a little backstory. So I went to Rutgers University in New Brunswick for my undergraduate degree. I did a double major in psychology and criminal justice, and then a double minor in Africana studies and health and society. Yeah, I was always told throughout, like, oh my gosh, why are you doing so much? Like, you're crazy, da da da. Listen, it was all the same price either way, so I was getting a bang for my buck, right? Like, always been interested in psychology, always been interested in mental health advocacy, always been interested in being a mental health professional, so I knew that was what I wanted to go to school for. I did a lot of back and forth about the route that I wanted to take in terms of doing a master's in social work, whether I wanted to try and go right into a PhD, whether I wanted to do a post-bac position, whether I wanted to do a master's into a PhD, whether I just wanted to do a master's and stop. Like, I had a bunch of different stuff that I was thinking about doing, but I ultimately decided on a master's, and I applied to programs that would allow me to not only get my degree, but to also take the exam and apply for licensure after the completion of the program, because they provide the necessary courses and the necessary fieldwork options in order to let me get those things. So I did apply to 6 schools. I applied to University of Pennsylvania, I applied to New York University, Fordham University, Boston University, Temple University, and then Teachers College at Columbia University. And now I'm just going to dive in a little bit into the stats that I applied with, so you guys can kind of get a more general idea of the type of applicant I was going into the process. Alrighty, so for my overall GPA, Rutgers did out of a 4.0 flat, and I had a 3.77. For my psych GPA, that was a 3.82 out of 4.0 flat as well. And then I also had my criminal justice GPA as well, but that didn't really matter as much, only because I was applying to psych specific programs and it just wasn't really necessary. GRE score, I don't have one. I didn't have to take one. 0 schools that I applied to required the GRE. From what I remember, they all would accept it if I were to turn it in or apply with that in my portfolio, but none of them required it. So I took advantage of that. Yeah, so those are kind of the general stats. We don't really have class rank in college, or at least at Rutgers. That's not really... Well, technically it does exist, but it's not really something that is really looked at. Okay, so I guess I'll jump into the extracurriculars now. So for all my applications, I submitted a CV, which is a curriculum vitae, rather than a resume. This is preferred if you have research experience or teaching experience. Also allows you to go over the 2 pages that a resume would allow you to go to. Usually people say that you can only do 1 page for a resume, but if absolutely necessary, you can let it go on to the 2nd page, but it's kind of suggested that you don't. So once I started getting my feet wet with research, I knew that a CV would definitely be the way to go, so I can fully maximize the opportunity to, like, show who I am through my experiences. For my extracurriculars, I won't get too specific. I'll definitely just give you guys a general gist so you can understand where I'm coming from. I had multiple leadership positions on campus. We had a mental health organization on campus, and I was a general member for 2 years. Then I went to community outreach chair and then co-president. And then also I would hold positions like outside of school in terms of like tutoring programs and whatnot. And then I also had a job in which I worked at all 4 years for the college. And then I was able to be a manager at that job position my senior year. So throughout these positions, I was able to highlight not only that do I go for things that I'm interested in and stick with them, but I'm also able to build upon many beneficial skills and be able to grow within an organization or grow within a business because of the skills that I learned and because of the growth that I had, which is good to show. I guess that's one tip to throw in there. Most not about what you say, but it's about how you frame it. It's all about saying how you started here and got from here. Even if it's the smallest jump, it's all about how you phrase it and how you quantify it. So keep that in mind. I had some volunteer work. They were all mainly related to mental health stuff or things that interest me. So I was in the Psychology Honor Society, the Criminal Justice Honor Society, and then there was a general one that was for I think like the top 30% of liberal arts students. So I had 3 honor societies. And then I know I mentioned CVs are good for if you have research and teaching experience. I had a few presentations that I gave, as well as a few times where I was a guest speaker in a few different classes, so I was able to list that under my teaching experience. And then for research, I was only in 1 lab during my time in undergrad, but this was okay because the program that I'm in right now is geared towards clinical work, not research work. So even just having that experience on my CV was like a big plus. They weren't looking for extensive research experience, and just having anything at all was beneficial. So definitely wasn't frowned upon. But if I was applying to a program that was more research oriented, then I definitely would have had to provide more research related experience. Lastly, going into the supplements. So for Teachers College specifically, we had one general personal statement that is usually kind of just the base level requirement for any type of program that you apply to, basically just stating, it's almost like your personal essay that you wrote for your undergraduate application. It's really just giving them a more in-depth version of who you are, the experiences you have, what exactly in your life like brought you to want to join this community at this school or pursue this specific career or this specific degree. And another tip to throw in there, don't utilize your personal statement as an extension of your CV or resume. They'll very easily be able to pick up when you're just using it as an extension to be like, okay, and here's just more points and more stuff that I did that I wasn't able to fit on the CV or on the resume. Really use it to show who you are as a person and really humanize yourself, because they read through a bunch of applications every single day. Being able to stand out, not even because you're an amazing person who became the president of the United States at 9 years old. You learned how to drive at 6 months. Like, no. You just have to humanize yourself into like, I am a real person who is passionate about whatever program I'm applying to, and I am more than the numbers. I'm much more than that, and this is how I am more than that. This is how it all ties together. So keep that in mind as well. For the rest of the supplements for Teachers College, we had, well, I don't know if this is for Teachers College in general. I'm pretty sure it was just my program specifically, which is mental health counseling. We had to answer 3 short answer supplements. I'm allowed to say. So I'm not gonna say too much, but just know that 3 short answer supplements were all surrounded about mental health and then like qualities a person should have to be a successful mental health professional. Those are really like the general things of what I applied with and what the application was like. I want to say the application opened pretty early, and then I believe it closed at the end of January. I definitely turned it in, I want to say beginning of January, but then I heard back in March. I think I heard back in March. Yeah, if you guys have any other like questions about my application process or any general questions about the other schools that I applied to, you can leave those down in the comments below and I'll try to get to those. And if you have any comments about Teachers College and that application and anything that I might not have gotten to, also comment that below. For now, I'm just gonna go over a few more simple tips and things to keep in mind when you're filling out your applications. Well, for one, start early. That doesn't mean that the day that the application opens, you complete everything and then turn it in the next day. That's not what it means. It just means to get a general idea early on of deadlines, what each school requires, things like that. Another thing about starting early, make sure you're asking for letters of recommendations in advance. Just send a brief follow-up email when the deadline gets closer and make sure you secure those letters of recommendations. I would also recommend making either, it depends on what type of platform you like using. Some people like Notion, some people like Excel. For me personally, I used Google Sheets for this, and I just kept track of all the important information on each school. So it's like school name, location, tuition, the average amount of aid that students get, the portal link, what supplements and what materials they would require of me. So like letters of rec, personal statements, unofficial or official transcript. Make sure you guys watch out for that, because some people want official, and that's a whole different process than just requesting an unofficial and getting that printed out. Just general things like that. Another tip that I have is that if you are able to, definitely go and visit the schools that you apply to and or get into. You may think that you want to go to a school, or you may think that this school aligns with you, and then you go and you visit that school and it just might not be a good fit. Definitely recommend visiting in person, because just the energy that you feel in person is way different than any video you can watch online, anything you can hear through word of mouth. It's just a completely different experience. So if you were able to, I would definitely recommend that. On that same note, so when you are in the midst of applying to schools, if you want a insider's perspective, or you really want to get a deeper dive into how students feel about the school, definitely reach out to students via LinkedIn and just send them a brief message. Really just being upfront and saying, hi, like, I'm applying to so-and-so school. I'm really interested in going. I see that you're a student there in the same program that I'm currently applying to. I was just wondering if you would have a few minutes to chat via Zoom, or if you're local, to come meet at a local coffee shop and we can just chat a little bit about what your experience has been like at said school. A lot of people underestimate how willing people are to just simply have a conversation, just simply to chat, offer a helping hand, and worst comes to worst, they just won't respond, but you at least have to try. Next tip, don't be afraid to ask for a application fee waiver. Now, like I said, I applied to 6 schools and I got a waiver for all but one of them. It's a fairly easy process. I don't think any school that I applied to gave me a hard time about accessing a fee waiver. It was fairly simple. It either consisted of me filling out a separate form, or me emailing financial aid explaining why I needed a fee waiver, and just explaining whatever the case may be. So please do not be afraid to ask. On that same note, another tip, still fill out the FAFSA. Fill it out. Literally fill it out. Now, I know that when you fill out the FAFSA as a grad student, you're not eligible for Pell Grants, because those are only for undergraduate students. But for one, you're still eligible for student loans to the government, which I know, please don't get me started. Don't get me started. I know. I just want to make sure everyone has options. Then second, your school that you end up applying to or going to then uses your FAFSA information to decide if you qualify for work study, if you're eligible for a scholarship, if you're eligible for a fellowship, like things like that. So don't just think, oh, because I'm in grad school, I don't need to fill it out, or oh, I think I have just enough, so I'm not going to fill it out. Always fill it out. You just never know. So don't assume. Don't assume. Yeah, so I'm scrolling through the list. I think I got through everything that was on the list. It was a pretty brief video. I wanted to kind of keep it that way to leave room for any other questions that people may have that are more specific. I will say, Teachers College is a very holistic process, and they look at students as a whole. They don't just look at numbers, they don't just look at test scores, they don't just look at GPAs. They really care to know that they are accepting students who are well-rounded, and Columbia really does use a holistic approach when checking their applications. So even if you feel like you may be lacking in one area or you can strengthen another, don't let that deter you, because you are more than numbers and you are more than scores. You are a person who is worthy, and you are a person that can very well get into the school that you choose. So on that note, thank you guys for watching. Of course, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that about anything I said in the video, please be sure to leave a comment down below. Yeah, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! That you never seen, something that